So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Landon Rank, pronouns he, him, and I'm the Associate Director here at SB ACT. And we are the coordinating agency for the South County Act on Homelessness Collaborative. I'm joined by my colleague, Kai Tilley, who will be helping us with some of the administration today. And Kai, if you can help me by monitoring the chat window and letting people into the Zoom room, that would be great.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone.
Thank you. If you would, everyone, please introduce yourself in the chat window. If you're associated with an organization, list that there. We'd love to know who all is here with us today. And as you saw, we're recording today because we know that it's the holiday season. And so there are people who will likely need to watch the YouTube video after the fact. So one thing as we get started that I wanted to introduce is the Jam board. This is something that we used at our last all-call meeting, and I thought we had a really nice conversation with it. And so this is a board where we'll be sharing any notes or thoughts you might have during the meeting. You can also, of course, just list questions or comments in the chat window, but it helps us to be able to see them all in one place like this. And so we have a couple different categories of things that might come up for you during today's meeting, things that you like, that you're excited about, things that you wish, especially if you want to name areas of concern related to homelessness, and then questions you have or areas for potential for the future. So I'm going to share this link in a moment, but what you can do as the meeting is going is you can go over to the left side of the screen and you'll click where there's a sticky note. And you can just type your note, whatever it might be, whatever category it is. And then once you have it, you can then save it into whichever category it goes in. So it's just a helpful way for us to kind of see where a lot of the energy is from the group. And so I'd really encourage you to take advantage of that because it also helps us to know sort of where to direct our conversation. So I'm going to share that link now in the chat window. And thanks to everybody for introducing yourselves as well. All right, so that Jamboard link is in the chat window. I encourage you to check that out and add any notes or thoughts during the meeting. So just to start, we wanted to note this recording will be available at sbact.org/homelessnessresponse or through our YouTube channel if you just look up Santa Barbara Alliance for Community Transformation. This is our quarterly all-call meeting. So this is where we discuss kind of anything and everything that's going on related to homelessness in South Santa Barbara County, from Carpinteria all the way through the end of Goleta. And so we welcome any community members who are here today who want to learn more. We're really hopeful that we can help respond to questions you might have. And also, we're hopeful you can help direct us so that we know where there might be things that we're missing. So I just want to start, as we usually do, by mentioning that the language that we'll be using in the meeting, we do try to use people first language, because first and foremost, the people who are out on the streets are people before they're homeless. And so we say they're people who are experiencing homelessness. You'll hear some people use the term unhoused rather than homeless or houseless because a lot of the individuals, in fact, a large majority of the individuals experiencing homelessness in our community are actually from Santa Barbara County. So it doesn't quite make sense to say they're without a home because their home is here. It might make more sense to say unhoused. However, for the sake of ease, we do use the phrase homelessness or people experiencing homelessness by and large. And of course, we will be talking about behavioral health, meaning mental health and substance abuse. But we want to remind everyone that a lot of these experiences are very, very different depending on who you're talking to or about. And so we just want to be careful to not lump everyone in as one monolith. There are so many different experiences. So in terms of this collaborative, this diagram is about as clear as mud. But I just want to say this is a South County-wide coalition. We've got partners that work with each of the cities in the South County area. We've got partners from the county. We've got partners from all the different shelter and service providing nonprofits in our area, partners from law enforcement, partners from the business community, And we've also got partners with people who are actually currently or have formerly experienced homelessness, who are helping to lead this endeavor. So this is really a big cross-sector collaboration. And we're trying to make it aligned as best we can with the larger efforts that are going on at the county level with our county's continuum of care, or COC. So you can see we have a lot of different gatherings that are happening throughout the weeks and the months. And we'll share about some of those and ways for you to get involved as we go on. I just wanted to name some of the partner agencies and groups that are involved. You can see all the lists here and just all the different categories. So this is really a big undertaking. We know that homelessness was not caused by one entity or just one issue, and so we're not going to solve it unless we all work together. All right, so I wanted to start with just some updates about what's going on in our community before we get into some more in-depth looks at homelessness. Just one thing to note is that it is the colder season of the year and the wetter season of the year. And so Good Samaritan Shelter hosts our countywide Freedom Warming Centers at different faith communities. Now, there are certain conditions that have to be met. You can see those listed on the screen in order for those warming centers to be activated. However, that is something that is a really invaluable asset for people experiencing homelessness during these cold months. I encourage you to join those email blasts. It's a great way to just stay informed so you can know when the warming centers are open. That way, if you are in touch with someone who's experiencing homelessness, you'll be able to share and make sure and direct them to the correct location. And these are typically open at different locations. We have one in Santa Barbara, typically one in Carpinteria, and then others in Mid and North County as well. I don't see anyone currently from Good Samaritan or the county on the call. If I'm mistaken, please feel free to chime in if you want to share anything else. Next thing I wanted to share is the Longest Night Memorial. So this is a memorial that's been going on for years now in Santa Barbara County, but is really a nationwide endeavor on the longest night of the year, which is December 21st, to commemorate those who passed away while experiencing homelessness. And so each year, we typically gather at various places throughout the county, and we'll have some interfaith communities come together to remember and actually read the names of the individuals who passed away. And so this year, the event will be on December 21st at 5:30 p.m. In front of the Santa Barbara County Courthouse. We've had several people who have experienced homelessness are helping to plan the event. And it's really a beautiful and very somber affair. We really encourage you to join us if you're able. It's just a good reminder of why we're doing this work in the first place. And we can put that link in the chat window as well to make it easy for RSVPs. Another really big announcement, just a reminder that the annual point in time count is coming up. It's just around the corner. For those of you who don't know, this is our county's annual census of everyone who's experiencing homelessness, whether they are out on the streets or in vehicles or sleeping in shelters. We want to get an accurate count of how many people are experiencing homelessness over the course of one night. This is really important for us as a county because it gives us a sense of whether we're trending upward or downward, gives us a sense of where to direct resources, and it also dictates the amount of federal and sometimes state funding that we can get for our different initiatives. So it's really important that we get as accurate of a count as possible, which means that we need lots of volunteers, hundreds, in fact. It is an early morning. It's a Wednesday morning at 5:30 a.m. in January, so it'll be a cold, dark morning, which is why it's all the more important that we spread the word now, because we're going to need to try and recruit a lot of folks. So we encourage you to check it out. You're welcome to even just sign up and come to one of the training sessions and see if you think you might be able to try it out. But I'll say, as someone who's done it several times in a row, it's actually a really lovely community event. You get to meet some really wonderful people who also care about our community. And it's just a really good way to get a sense of kind of what's going on in our county as regards homelessness. So we'll share that link in the chat window as well. And then one last kind of logistical announcement. I just wanted to share that throughout Santa Barbara County, we have dozens of coordinated entry sites, places where people experiencing homelessness can kind of get into our county's system so that we can try and help them move forward with housing in a more coordinated way. And a couple of those are under SB Act. We have these neighborhood navigation centers, and we just opened our 4th one in Goleta. These are sites where people can come, they can receive a variety of different services from healthcare to meals to hygiene. But then also it's a way for them to get connected to case management and housing navigation. And so we're really trying to promote these as best we can in the community. We're also looking for additional faith communities or community organizations to assist us by providing meals at the Goleta NNC. So if you're a part of a group that you think might be open or interested in doing something like that, please feel free to reach out and let us know. But we do want to appreciate all the groups that currently come out and volunteer and assist at these sites. So we don't currently have someone from the county on the call, but I'll just make mention that while we're talking about homelessness, it's important to keep in mind there are actually a lot of initiatives and approved projects to provide both interim and permanent housing, specifically for people experiencing homelessness. One of the most exciting and most that will be opening the most soon is the Buena Tierra project out in Goleta. Chuck, could I put you on the spot to just share a little bit about Buena Tierra and the current timeline as you're aware of it?
Absolutely. So for those of you who aren't familiar, the Buena Tierra project, which there's a picture there at about, what is that, 4 o'clock or so on the, yeah, there it is a old Super 8 motel near the airport on Fairview and Hollister. The Housing Authority purchased it with funds specifically for homeless housing, and it will become early next year a permanent supportive housing project. What that means is that all the people in the units, there'll be 59 units for residents, 1 unit for a manager, will be formerly homeless, recently off the streets. We've qualified, I think, at least 100 people so far for the units. So there's a strong demand. The units are regular kind of motel rooms with kitchenettes and bathrooms, obviously, and accommodate comfortably 1 or 2 people. And there will be on the first floor a whole range of supportive services provided by the nonprofit Good Samaritan Shelter. They were selected by the Housing Authority to be the service provider. And sometimes people get concerned when they hear 100% homeless people, formerly homeless people living in one building, but you are all living amongst these projects already. 2 examples that have currently been operating for years very successfully is the El Carrillo project, which is at Carrillo and Castillo, I think, or roughly on Carrillo Street, and I think there's at least 50 homeless people there, formerly homeless people there. And then in Isla Vista is Pescadero Lofts, and as far as I know, there have been no concerns or complaints from neighbors in the whole history of the time these projects have been around. They're well managed, they're well run, and most importantly, people who move into these projects, as soon as they move into a home, they're no longer homeless. And many people start to change behavior, change their lifestyle in order to maintain housing again. So it's really an important and, in fact, the most successful way to end homelessness is by building these kinds of housing projects around the county. And in fact, most of the projects that are being developed by either the county or the city housing authority.
Thank you, Chuck. Yeah, and so Buena Tierra is a project of the County Housing Authority, and it's actually one of multiple that are currently in development in Goleta. It's the one that's hopefully going to be opening in February, as Chuck mentioned. And I'm already seeing in the Jamboard a couple of sticky notes appearing about we need more housing opportunities and types, and could we get more tiny homes and rooming houses for below market rate. And the response to that is yes, we need more and more. Thankfully, we have quite a bit in the pipeline in terms of these units, similar to what Chuck is talking about. And when it comes to the tiny homes too, there are a couple of interim projects. They're not permanent housing, but the La Posada project site was approved by the County Board of Supervisors at the former juvenile hall site in Nolita. And that'll be 90 cabins there that will be helping people transitioning out of homelessness and towards permanent housing. But we're always looking for more sites, more opportunities for housing, and more advocacy. And so we'll talk more about that as the meeting goes on. I want to pause briefly just because we've gone through a lot already to see if there's any questions before we keep moving here. All right. So we're grateful to have with us today representatives from the cities of Goleta, Santa Barbara, and Carpinteria to share with us about what's going on in each of the 3 cities around homelessness. And before I do that, I just wanted to make mention that we do have some homelessness specific resource directories for community members that we wanted to plug. If you visit sbac.org/homelessness response, you'll see there are directories created with the cities of Santa Barbara and Goleta with different phone numbers, email addresses, who to contact, who to call for different kinds of things. Because it may be that in one situation you do want to call 911, but maybe another situation, it's actually better to just report or note the encampment or call behavioral wellness to make a referral. So we encourage you to check that out and try and utilize that as a way to direct resources in the correct direction so that we can actually help both address encampments and address issues we see in the streets, but also help people get the services that they need. So I just wanted to talk briefly about some of our priority areas with this collaborative. We've been working closely with all 3 cities throughout our region to figure out what are some of the big focus areas that are affecting our entire region and how can we address them together. And through all of our conversations and talking with all those stakeholders we listed earlier, the 3 areas that we're focused on for this first year of the collaborative are behavioral health among people experiencing homelessness, vehicular homelessness, and then the public narratives about homelessness. And we're going to talk briefly about each of these. So just to start with behavioral health, so in September of 2021, the County Department of Behavioral Wellness conducted a study to just get a sense of the overall needs related to behavioral health in our community post-pandemic, or at least sort of post the first big wave of the pandemic. And the key results that came out of this, which were not specific to homelessness, but just that there had been significantly increased mental health needs in our community, and that there'd been a significant decrease in the adequate staffing needed to meet the need. So not only are we seeing more widespread mental health concerns in our community, again, for the general population as a whole, but we're not able to meet that need with the amount of staffing we have. These are reflective of findings we're seeing across the country. I think many of you have seen headlines about the U.S. mental health crisis. And it's worth noting that what is being found over and over again is that it disproportionately impacts the people who are the most vulnerable, and especially people experiencing homelessness. The second headline you see here references San Francisco, that even though the actual number of people on the streets stayed relatively steady during the pandemic, the rates of behavioral health concerns and the types of incidences that were happening were worsening significantly after the pandemic. And anecdotally, I think this is what we're seeing in our community as well, that even though the numbers of people who are experiencing homelessness may not have grown significantly, we're seeing more and more concerning things happen. And a lot of those are related to behavioral health concerns. So this is a large reason why we're working to address this. Now, as with the finding from behavioral wellness, we do have a pretty significant staffing shortage right now. I really encourage you to check out this report that came out from the Tobes Foundation and YouthWell earlier this year about the staffing shortages related to mental health throughout our county. But there are hundreds of vacancies that have yet been unfilled, and for a variety of reasons. The number one being the cost of living and the difficulty of paying staff in a way that they can actually afford to live here. But this is a significant barrier for us in working to address this. So I share all this to say we know there is a concern and we know there is a problem, and very likely many of you on this call have seen this very problem. And so this is what we're trying to focus on to address. And so we're currently working on some specific goals with the collaborative that we'll be able to bring to you at our next open all-call meeting in March, as well as kind of some of the targeted responses that we'll be doing. A lot of it just comes down to all of us collaborating and working together with the County Department of Behavioral Wellness, with the homeless outreach workers, with law enforcement, and everyone else. Are there any questions just about this first priority area? So priority area number 2 is vehicular homelessness. So I think many of us, likely community members on this call, have seen a rise in vehicular homelessness in our communities. And this is true not just at a citywide level, but countywide and even statewide. So this is the Santa Barbara County point in time count results from the last 4 years that the point in time count was conducted. And you can see that yellow line is the number of people sleeping in their vehicles. Of course, the point in time count is just one night, so it's not a perfect measure by any means. However, it's a fairly steep growth within that population specifically. So we're fairly certain that there have been some significant shifts with regard to this population in particular. And as I said, this is not specific to Santa Barbara County by any means. And if you talk to other cities in the region, they're all grappling with it. We are thankful to have in Santa Barbara County the flagship program for addressing vehicular homelessness. The Safe Parking Program was actually sort of the nation's first model for this type of work. We have with us today Cassie Roach, who's the Senior Programs Manager, and I asked her just to share a little update about what they're currently working on.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me and letting me speak just a little bit. We have continuously seen that increase. Unfortunately, we've been seeing seniors for years and years now, that population increasing, and now we're even seeing families increasing, which is new. Traditionally, we haven't seen as many families, and now it's grown enough to be noticeable. So we've seen a 56% increase from the 21-22 to the 22-23 fiscal year. And we're also seeing an increase in the number of individuals who are employed and living in their vehicles. So we are ramping up our case management efforts, our outreach efforts to make sure that folks are aware of the program, as well as trying to find more lots. We were able to open up a new Carpinteria lot. We're in talks with opening another lot in Lompoc and another lot in the county unincorporated area near Goleta. So that's exciting. And we are also ever in need of daytime parking for our RV folks. 2 of our main lots that provide the daytime parking are going to be developed in the next year. So that's going to be a big loss for us. So we're trying to, as proactively as possible, seek out new daytime parking. And in terms of services, the mental health side is struggling for clinicians. So we are actually trying to create and have created our own multidisciplinary team within New Beginnings of a behavioral health specialist, a substance use specialist, a senior aging case manager, a benefits employee specialist, and a nurse practitioner And a few of those positions we're still hiring for, but we're seeking to really broaden and specify in the services that we're providing, both to our folks who are experiencing homelessness, as well as to our housed folks that we serve through housing retention and the rapid rehousing side of the program. So we're trying to do what we can to keep getting services to the folks living in their vehicles, as well as continuing to support them when they transition into housing. Yeah, that's all I got for this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to open it up if there's any questions for Cassie. And just to start, Cassie, if community members want to support safe parking, what are some of the best ways they can do that?
Yeah, if you know anyone who owns a lot or has a rental property, those are really big opportunities. We always take in-kind donations for folks that are moving into housing, whether it be pots and pans or fresh linens. Donations are always more than welcome. We're really just trying to help us make more connections in the community to those individuals that might be able to help with getting more lots or more rental units for our clients.
Other questions for Cassie?
I have a question. So I've noticed throughout the South County a real growth in RVs. I don't know whether those people are homeless, whether people are, just traveling through in RVs. Does your program kind of try to keep tabs on those people? Do we kind of know what's going on?
From what we can tell, it's more so still folks that are living in their vehicles, and that are kind of more living here and from here. There has been a recent increase in a group of folks coming from out of the country and coming here for job placements and then living in RVs. So that's been an interesting new development, but largely still the traditional folks that just are trying to make ends meet and have found themselves living in an RV specifically.
Well, thank you, Cassie. We appreciate you being here and appreciate all that your team is doing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So as a South County collaborative, this is an area we're going to be focusing on, and we'll be naming some specific goals for the whole South County region. So we'll be sharing those with you in March, as well as kind of some of the strategies we're undertaking. We're going to be trying to hone in on what are some of the specific target populations, even within vehicular homelessness, that we can try and focus on. And then priority area number 3 is public narratives. And so you can see there's a lot on Nextdoor. I think we all know this, both positive and negative, and just generally out there in the community. There are narratives that are true and helpful to actually creating solutions for homelessness. And there are other narratives that can be more harmful toward actually making progress and coming up with solutions. And so recognizing this, our South County collaborative is going to be focusing on trying to get out more education and more awareness about some of the real issues, both the good and the bad of what's going on, so that we can try and inform the community and help us move forward together. So I want to move on to talking with our different cities about the different initiatives going on there. And so we have with us today Chuck from the city of Goleta, Joao from the city of Santa Barbara, and David from the city of Carpinteria. And I'm going to have each of them share just a brief update about what's going on in their areas and their role as well. So with that, we'll start with Chuck, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Just let me know if you would like to share yours.
Yeah, no, I didn't prepare any slides for it. I can just describe what's going on in Goleta. We have the council here and the leadership have really made, I'm distracted by this big picture of myself, have made a strong investment in working to really try to end homelessness in Goleta. And what does that mean? It doesn't mean there will be no homeless people or people becoming homeless. What it will mean is that we will have a strategy where we know every homeless person in Goleta, we know what they need and what they want, and we're actively working to place them all into some kind of permanent housing. And I'm happy to say that in the year that I've been with the city, we have managed to at least accomplish the knowing everybody goal through collaborative outreach. So we have CityNet, which is a statewide nonprofit, Good Samaritan Shelter, behavioral wellness, and each of them have teams. Oh, and New Beginnings Safe Parking. So 4 different agencies, each with their own teams, going out and meeting with people in the community, which sounds chaotic, except that we've been managing it through a system called Fulcrum, which is a mapping system. And we actually have this really nice picture of where people are, who they are. And then in the case notes, we get to learn what each person needs. And I've been monitoring that. Now there's approximately 200 people on my list in the city of Goleta who have, are at different stages in the process. Some are in shelter and they're moving towards permanent housing, like the Buena Tierra project that I described before. Some are getting placed. This week we had somebody placed in Harry's house. We had somebody, which is a senior project in Solvang. We had somebody placed in a private landlord's house or apartment with a voucher, a housing voucher that pays for a big chunk of their rent. So it's always been my contention that we can solve this problem with the right collaborative of people and resources that can establish the relationships that we need and then the plan for each person. And sometimes the hardest thing is establishing that relationship. So we see with CityNet, with Good Samaritan, with New Beginnings, with behavioral wellness, they go out over and over and over again and meet with people to try to establish trust and then build the plan with that person to find the resources they need to get them housed. And we actually have a lot of success when people are cooperative. It can happen in a matter of months. Sometimes it takes years, but we're able to really make it work. And we partner with agencies like PATH. I see Stephen's on the call from PATH statewide. They have a shelter here, the PATH shelter. City of Goleta has 2 beds specifically reserved for Goleta residents. Starting in January, we're going to have 4 beds specifically for Goleta residents at the Hedges House of Hope, which is another shelter in Isla Vista. It's not enough shelter, but as these shelters open up, we're going to be placing more and more people out of encampments and out of their cars into shelter and then into permanent housing. So I'm actually very optimistic. Something Landon didn't mention, and I encourage you all to track it, statewide, is Governor Newsom has been more generous than the federal government in urging the legislature to give literally billions of dollars to the state to address the problem. And you might go to LA and say, well, nothing's happening. Or you might be downtown and say, well, nothing's happening. And the problem is that it takes time. It takes time to build the trust. It takes even longer to build the housing that we need. So one of the projects that Landon showed earlier, I always forget the name of it. It's downtown. I didn't mention it. Is another homeless project that just went up, and that was created by the City Housing Authority. So Veracruz, thank you. And so we're all going to, these resources that have been flowing now for only the last 4 or 5 years are going to really start to generate results over the next 3 and 4 and 5 years. And so I encourage you to stay engaged, to talk to us and tell your neighbors and friends about all the things that we're actually doing in these communities. And I believe that you'll start to see a difference if you haven't already. I know I've noticed a change, but I'm not sure all of you have. And I encourage you to stay in touch with us.
Thank you, Chuck. I don't know if you named too the kind of priority areas for the city of Goleta as you're working on the strategic plan, because I think you had like 3 main areas. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to name those.
You mean regionally or the
no, the like vehicular.
Yeah. So ultimately, the primary goal is to get people into permanent housing, but we have an immediate strategy that I'm putting into place that's going to focus on the fastest growing population in Goleta, and actually the largest single population are people living in their vehicles. So we're working on a plan to bring safe parking, more robust services into Goleta. The outreach component is very much underway. We're also hoping to create interim housing in Goleta, similar to the Dignity Moves project that was developed downtown. We're excited about the La Posada project, which is a Dignity Moves project that's going up on Hollister outside the city limits. That's going to be, I think, 80 units of housing, which means 80 people living in encampments or in vehicles can move into a cabin and start to develop a plan for permanent housing. And then finally, we have a lot of permanent supportive housing going up in Goleta, which we're very excited about. The next one after Buena Tierra is Heritage Ridge, which will be 100 units of housing for families and for people with disabilities, many of whom will be formerly homeless. We're looking forward to the Patterson Lofts, which is just outside the city limits, another project dedicated to people with disabilities, many of them homeless. We're just seeing a lot of momentum. And does that answer your question, Landon, or did I leave something out?
No, I think that was it. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And again, I'll put my email in the chat. If anybody wants to reach out to me personally, I'm more than happy to connect with you.
Thank you. And we'll have some time after the 3 reports just to ask any questions of our staff in the different cities. So I want to move now to David Hernandez, who's a code compliance officer with the city of Carpinteria, just to share a little bit about what's going on there.
Yeah, Landon, thanks for the invite. Yeah, as Chuck mentioned, we've definitely seen an increase of vehicular homelessness, and we're lucky enough to get one of our safe parking lots full. We do have a waiting list now, so we're looking to add more spaces or hopefully come up with another lot. So that program is working well, and even from that program, we've, I believe, even housed some individuals. So that's good news there. As far as on the ground, we're seeing probably less active encampments than we had in the past. That may just be due to weather, or if they've moved on to other locations. And our Wednesday outreach program, which is from 11:30 to about 1 every Wednesday, which offers several services from the navigation groups to haircuts to food to clothing. So it's a good program. It's going strong. We continually have 20 or more guests each week. So we're doing well, doing good. Housing is what we need here.
And David, since we don't have a Carpinteria resource guide, what's the best way for people to, like, if they see somebody who's in need, whether they're in the vehicle or an encampment, how should they report that, or who should they talk to?
Yeah, definitely can reach out to the city directly. On our city's website, we have a portal that they can reach out, and will be directed to the code compliance directly or public works, depending on if it's a site cleanup or something.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And then last but not least, let's go to Joao with the city of Santa Barbara.
Hi, I was actually going to be Chris Clark. Drew out to step out for a minute, but let me go ahead and share our screen here. Oh, can you, Landon, would you be able to enable
Yes.
screen sharing? Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, okay, you should be able to now.
Okay, great. Oh, and actually, here's Joao. He'll take over just a second.
Hello, everyone. This is Joel Ruiz, Code Enforcement Officer for City of Santa Barbara. Let me share my screen here real quick. Let's see. Are you guys able to see my screen?
No, it's still black.
Still black. Okay, let's see why it's doing that. There we go.
There it
Perfect.
is.
All right, so sorry, my laptop's very small and I can't see this. So this is our citywide app. You could download it wherever you get your apps. It's called SB Connect. Through this app, or you could do it on your laptop or desktop, whatever you use. I'm going to paste it on the chat here. Through this app, you could report any issues throughout the city, whether it's a park bench that's broken, graffiti, broken trash container, or homeless issues. So since November of 2022 to the end of October 2023, we've had 320 encampment cleanups. And here you can see where the majority of the encampments resided. They're mostly on the transit corridor here and here on the railroad transit corridor as well, and towards the south of the city. And let's see. Yes, 322. Pasted the link in the chat. I'm sorry, you walked in a little bit. I was rushing here. Yes, do you guys have any questions about any of the cleanups that we've done around the city? Okay, I think that's it, Landon.
Thank you. So since we have all three of you, I'm going to put each of you on the spot one more time. I'd love to ask each of you if you could just share what do you see as sort of the biggest obstacles you're running into regularly when it comes to helping an individual to get off of the streets within your city? Any of the three of you can start.
I can start. So, and actually, before we talk about the challenges, I do want to stress the importance of the role of the county. The county of Santa Barbara receives millions and millions. I think it's up to nearly $100 million over the last 5 years that the county has received specifically for homeless services. Some of it has not been spent yet because it's new, including a significant amount of money for mental health services. So that's something that that SB Act has identified as an issue, and there's now resources on the table to start really addressing it. The other thing that they've done very well over the last 3 or 4 years is coordination with the South Coast cities. And so we mentioned, I think as Joao mentioned, the transit corridor. They got a big grant from the state to do cleanup of encampments along the transit corridors that has been really beneficial for Goleta in particular, and I would imagine Santa Barbara as well. So I just want to take my symbolic hat off to the county for the support that they've been providing us. And actually they're going to be, so the answer to your question, Landon, is I'm having the most trouble connecting with people living in vehicles. And some of that is that the safe parking program, because it's so great, is under tremendous demand across the county. They're being asked to do things all the way from Santa Maria all the way down to Carpinteria. And so it's hard for one agency to really, have day in, day out connection with our residents living in cars. So my hope is that it's on my short list, is to create more resources for the safe parking program. And we're going to be actually applying to the state with the county to focus on vehicles, people living in vehicles. So that's going to be a big effort for 2024 for us. The other thing that I'm I have a big wish for is that we as a community start to think about housing differently. We have a tendency in California to use the most expensive methods imaginable to create new housing. And a lot of it has to do with regulation and environmental restrictions and, cost of materials, et cetera. But we also have a huge community of people doing housing innovations that are small, very easily erected, housing that could be very beneficial as transitional housing or even permanent housing for homeless people. And so then the question is, where can we put those? And let's do it. And the Dignity Moves folks are just one example. There's many more all around, some locally and some statewide, to do new kinds of housing development. So that's my short-term wish is let's reach out to this people in parking, get them out of their cars and into housing. My second big wish is let's look really broadly at how to create more housing that's less expensive for everybody.
Thank you, Chuck. I really appreciate that. Joao or David, I'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, I think definitely our need here is housing, or whether it's long term or short term. We're at a smaller scale than the city of Toledo or the county, but we definitely need more attention here down here in Carpinteria and get those partnerships going. That would be my goal for 2024.
Thank you.
I agree with Chuck. The individuals' vehicular homelessness, it has been, I think, the harder one to reach, getting those individuals to, accept a shelter. That has been the biggest barrier for us, getting the individuals out of, from their vehicles into a shelter.
And then I'll open it up for questions from the community as well. There's one in the chat right now about what happens when a cleanup happens to help move individuals towards shelters. I see Chuck put a response in there. I'm also wondering if I can ask Emily Koval if you're available to respond to that as well. Emily works with CityNet.
Hey, Landon. Yeah, can you just repeat the question?
Yeah, it's in the chat. It says, when a cleanup happens, is there a strategy to move people into shelters? How do we keep encampments from just popping up somewhere else?
Yes. So we have a very strict encampment enforcement policy that CityNet works closely with law enforcement, cities and counties to make sure that when we go into an encampment that's marked to clean and clear, we're doing it in a trauma-informed and person-centered way. So first, we're alerted hopefully a few weeks before the encampment is going to be clean and cleared, so we're able to go out and focus on the people in that encampment, and we'll outreach to them maybe 2-3 times a week, getting people ready for that encampment clearing. We offer shelter beds, and we make sure that shelter beds are available for at least 80% of the residents living in that encampment before the encampment clearing happens. If shelter beds aren't available, CityNet won't be present at the time that the encampment cleanout happens, but we will give them prior notice just to make sure that people are safe and aware and able to relocate. And our main goal is to move people from those encampments directly into shelters so that they continue with their case management services and don't get lost in the whack-a-mole kind of movement that happens post encampment clear outs. We have written document that we can provide anyone who's interested. And then after the clean out happens, usually enforcement would be doing rounds to make sure that people don't move back into the site that was recently cleared. So.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. This is a big endeavor too, because they're coordinating not only with the cities and the county, but also with Caltrans and Union Pacific Railroad, who own a lot of those properties where some of these encampments are located. And there are instances where sometimes those larger agencies like Caltrans or Union Pacific, they're statewide. And so they don't have the time and the resources to totally coordinate with us. So we have to kind of scramble sometimes as a community to keep up with them. Other questions for our city staff? So I do want to circle back to what Chuck was saying about the county. The county is very, very involved with homelessness and helping assist the individuals throughout the entire South County region. I had invited Lucille Boss to be with us today, and unfortunately she couldn't join us. But as Chuck mentioned, the county has been coordinating a couple of specific initiatives for encampments, one being along the transit corridors, along the highways and the railroads that Emily's team has been working on. And then a new initiative that's focused on the waterways, so all of our creeks and rivers. And that'll be, again, that's county-wide, but we'll have some impacts throughout our region too.
I'd like to add too that the county oversees a public process for everyone who is interested, including all of you, to weigh in on homelessness. We're a very participatory community, and actually these what they're called continuums of care, they actually exist all over the country. And the continuum of care here locally meets on a regular basis. It's an opportunity for people of all, anyone from citizens to elderly to professional folks to people who work with homelessness and housing people to come together to decide the priorities around homelessness, including all the funding that we're getting from the state and the federal government, which is now, $10 to $20 million a year. It's some, fairly large amount of money that can be directed specifically towards different kinds of services. So if you're somebody who, feels like this is an issue that's really important to you and you want to get more engaged, again, you can reach out to me. My email's in the chat. But the name of the body is called the Continuum of Care, and the county oversees that. And in addition to that, that's the point in time count comes out of that program. So SB Act is doing the point in time count. We have a tracking system that keeps track of all homeless people throughout the whole county called the Homelessness Management Information System. And we now can very robustly track each person and his or her needs. And again, that's thanks to the work of the county. So I'm an active member of the Continuum of Care and really want to make sure that our whole community gets represented and when all of these different programs come down.
Thank you, Chuck. And I put the link just to learn more about the Continuum of Care in the chat window. We had a question come up in the Jamboard, and again, thanks to everybody who's added to that so far, just about how to respond when I see someone sleeping on a bench or on the ground out in the cold. And there are different ways within each city. And so again, I would make a plug for those response guides. It sounds like Carpinteria, Goleta, and Santa Barbara all have different links or apps where you can report an individual in need. And then typically then the city itself will be able to then refer directly to a service provider who can then go out and do some outreach to the individual. So I'm going to put the link to that response page in the chat window. Any other questions? I want to thank Chuck and David and Joao for all being with us today and just for sharing and all that you do today.
Thanks, Simon.
So just a couple more things today. Just to note, if you want to stay abreast of what is happening regarding homelessness, there are a lot of different ways to do that. One of them is through our SB Act newsletter, because we're trying to sort of become a clearinghouse for a lot of the different homelessness and housing initiatives throughout South County. So we encourage you to join our email list if you're interested. And of course, to follow any of these agencies or the cities or the county on social media as well. There are a lot of things going on every week. And so we'd love for everybody to try and stay connected. So then what to do? There are a lot of different ways to get involved when it comes to addressing these issues. There's going to be advocacy opportunities that come up. As soon as tomorrow at the Santa Barbara City Council meeting at 2 p.m., there will be an agenda item for supporting PATH shelter in Santa Barbara. And there will also be an agenda item regarding the housing element, which is the city of Santa Barbara, as well as all of our other cities, have had to determine where we will be building more and more housing in our communities per state mandates. And so that will be in front of our city council tomorrow. We encourage you to just check it out, just to stay informed. These conversations are really, really important when it comes to housing, because that's ultimately going to greatly impact the number of people who experience homelessness in our community. If you're looking for opportunities to volunteer, we mentioned the neighborhood navigation centers. That's just one place to volunteer. We have lots of great service providing agencies, including I see Path in the chat window, among others. And then the point in time count. We really, really are going to need those volunteers on January 24th. That link, I think, is earlier in the chat, and I'll try and post it again at the end, but we need to be able to get an accurate count. So just to put a couple of dates in front of you all, the next State Street Waterfront wrap will be this Thursday, and it's actually going to be 3:15 p.m. So I need to correct that. And that's a meeting focused on specifically homelessness in the State Street and waterfront areas of Santa Barbara. So that's a good way to just find out what's happening there and report any issues you might be seeing. Similarly, on Friday of this week will be an East Side wrap meeting. The Longest Night Memorial on the 21st at 5:15 p.m. for point in time count. And then in March 11th will be our next quarterly all-call meeting like this. Right now it's slated to be virtual, but I'm going to push to try to do something in person. And so with that, I wanted to just end the content of our meeting today and just see if there are any other questions. I want to thank you all for being here. Any questions before we close up today? Great. Well, thank you all. We really, really appreciate your time. We encourage you to join us for any of these events that are coming up, and hopefully we'll see you in the next couple of weeks. Take care all.
Thank you all.